It's working. I'm live. Unless you're seeing it on YouTube and then this was the live video. Hi everyone. Happy Hump Day. Every Hump Day I like to sit down live on video and discuss a topic that people are interested in. I'm a sex educator. I'm also a sex and relationship coach. So yeah, let's talk about stuff. This week the topic is intersex. Hi, Coco, nice to see you. Intersex. A topic like really that people, when I bring it up, in my experience, people are so unaware of what intersex means. Killed by Kimchi. I love that. That's a great name. Hi, thanks for joining. We're talking about intersex. And like I was saying, oh, my light is flickering. I just gotta fix that. Okay. People that I talk to, just in like everyday whatever, haven't heard, like a lot of people haven't heard of intersex, or they think it's really uncommon. And I'm gonna say this, I'm really sorry, I know this is a slur. I'm saying it so that you don't repeat it. People go, oh, you mean like a hermaphrodite? That used to be the term years and years and years ago. Now it is definitely considered a slur. Please don't use it the proper term. Today is intersex. Let me know. I've been having mic issues. Let me know if you can or cannot hear me. Anyways, so intersex, what does that mean? Because as soon as people hear or assume the word that is now a slur, like hermaphrodite, certain assumptions come to mind that usually involve genitalia. Not necessarily the case. Whether or not that is, okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Okay. When a baby is born, I've had 2 babies myself. So I could definitely confirm that this is what happens. Okay? Everyone kind of knows this. You see it in the movies, etc. When a baby is born, baby comes out, and everybody looks at the external genitalia, just the shape of the external genitalia, and makes an announcement. It's a boy or it's a girl. If it looks like a penis, then they're like, oh, it's a boy. And yet, you know, nowadays, especially when we talk about things like the term biological sex, I've got my own issues surrounding that term, but whatever. I'm just going to push that aside for right now. If you like Google what does biological sex mean, it's not just the formation of the external genitalia, but that also includes internal sexual characteristics such as a uterus, ovaries, etc. Testes, blah, blah, blah. That also includes chromosomes. That also includes hormones, which are not going to be present until post-puberty. Killed by Kimchi, I can hear you just fine. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. That's really important.
Mom, I'm gonna bring my new book today.
You can bring your new book to bed. Go see Daddy, sweetheart. Mommy's working. Sorry. Bedtime's been pushed back a little bit recently. Okay. So you explain to people, okay, so biological sex consists of, you know, chromosomes, internal sex characteristics, external sex characteristics, hormones, which again don't even really show up until puberty. You know, people don't put babies through these tests when they're born. They're not like, okay, let's take some blood tests, check some chromosomes, let's do some ultrasounds to check their internal organs. That doesn't happen. All they do is they look at the external genitalia and they announce a sex, which is obviously problematic. And nowadays, you know, there are people that are intersex, and intersex doesn't necessarily mean, again, that it's variations in external sex characteristics. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Sometimes, you know, someone might be born with a penis and have a uterus inside of them, or have different chromosomes. Like, there's many different variations that intersex can mean. If it's some kind of variation where not everything is lining up towards one sex, that would be called intersex. Yes, there are people that are intersex that don't know about it. And I had to pull up my book because I didn't remember. Here, I am kind of plugging my own book a little bit here. Polyglamorous, by the way. I had to remember the name. Some of you may remember the widely publicized athlete Caster Semenya, if anyone remembers her. A South African runner with several gold medals won in the Olympics and World Championships. In 2009, she was subjected to the controversial process called sex verification. Does anyone remember this? I do. I remember this. In which people, usually women, are put through various tests to determine a person's biological sex. Basically, this athlete who was assigned female at birth, that means when she was born, it was like, hey, it's a girl, and competed in the female category in terms of like running things. I'm not super familiar with sports, but I do remember the awful things that people had said, that she was very masculine looking, that people questioned whether she was female. And so publicly she had to go through all of these testing where they did the ultrasounds, they did the chromosomes and the hormones and everything like that. And it was determined, where is it? It was awful just because it was so public, and she's public about it now. Here we go. Instead of ovaries, she technically had testes, which produced an excessive amount of male hormones, a condition known as hyperandrogenism. The results, decisions, and dealings with the press were all handled poorly in that they were so public, and collator stated that the case could have been handled with more sensitivity. In 2011, the IAAF, which is the International Association of Athletics Foundation, updated the rules and regulations regarding the eligibility of women with hyperandrogenism, allowing them to compete provided that they had maintained their androgen levels below the male range. So basically they said you can compete, but you have to be on hormone treatments in order to classify as being a woman. So this was somebody who led her entire life as a woman, and to my knowledge to this day, I mean, I've seen some interviews, it's been a while, but she was like, yeah, I'm a woman, but I'm also kind of intersex because this is part of my body. I didn't know that was the case, and this is my life. So that's a thing. That is a thing. Oh, hello, much mewing. Nice of you to join us. So that is a possibility that people can be intersex without knowing it because it's not always visible from the outside. Sometimes it just comes up with hormones or chromosomes, etc. Some people don't realize it until puberty. I'm going to put a link in my bio on my Instagram. I just, this afternoon, I watched a wicked TED Talk about intersex folks, and the speaker gave an amazing comparison to like Harry Potter and the X-Men. The X-Men was a big one. She made a really great comparison to the X-Men in that she was like, some intersex people, it's obvious at the time of birth, and some intersex people, it doesn't really happen until puberty, which is like what happens with the X-Men and their superpowers. So I thought that was a really cool analogy. And some never know that it's just like a thing. So I thought that was really cool. Nim Pop, hi Nim. I wave at you. So another question would be, how common is being intersex? And it's estimated, obviously different areas differ, but globally it's estimated about 1.7% of the population is intersex. And you might think that that's not a lot. That's about the same amount as people that are born naturally with red hair, like ginger folks. And I know that is actually, I think that might be a slur in some areas. I know some people that own the word ginger. I don't know. Help me out here. But with the red hair, naturally. That's how common that is, because then you think, how many redheads do you know? I know a number of redheads. So there are a lot of people out there that are intersex and maybe that are really quiet about it because, I mean, for a lot of reasons. How many things in your life do you have to check, male or female? I will put the link in the bio for this awesome TED Talk that I saw. This speaker said that, you know, every time going to the doctor was like traumatizing because then there'd all these people would come in asking about her genitalia and asking basically to look. Ugh. Ugh. That's all I can say. That's all I can say to that. I posted a picture on Instagram today about the surgery that is often performed on intersex babies when it's obvious from the outside, from just like a first glance at their genitalia, that there's some variation there in terms of genitalia, that it's not entirely one way or the other. And so oftentimes, this has actually been outlawed in like California, I think last year. I want to research. I actually have my computer on here. In Canada, I don't know what the case is. I know people are trying to get it outlawed, where you perform basically plastic surgery on a baby's genitals without their consent, because you can't get a consent from a baby. You have to wait until they're older, because they just get the parents in on it. So basically, a baby, if they were born with certain variations of external genitalia, they would perform surgery right away on them and say, oh, it's okay, we'll just... Oh, it's in my book. I forgot to. There was a doctor. I'm trying to remember his name. Absolutely awful. I don't see it. I don't remember the name. I should look it up. I'm going to look it up. I'm just going to Google it. He said this famously. It's easier, this is disgusting, it's easier to dig a hole than it is to build a pole. So this doctor insisted on performing surgery on babies that had variations on the external genitalia to create a vagina and vulva and raise the baby as female, and insisted that it was all nurture. That if you didn't tell the child and you just raised it as female, you would never know. Which proved not to be the case. There's another interesting case where I believe it was the same doctor, had a young toddler incident where there was an injury to the baby's penis. And the doctor was like, I'm just going to redo this whole thing. We'll make it a vagina. You can start raising this baby as female. And they'll be fine. And then the baby wasn't fine as they grew up. I'm going to search which doctor that was. It's easier to dig a hole. See, it's already popping up on my Google. Maybe because it knows me. Who did that? Which is awful, by the way. Seriously. I'm not seeing a name right away, so I'm not going to waste too much time on it, because obviously that guy sucks. But that was a real thing, and that is still a thing that happens to this day. And so people now are saying, you know what, that's really unhealthy. Just let the kid be what they want to be. Be honest. Like, I don't know why this is so... maybe some would consider it radical, but it's like, just raise the kid, let them figure things out for themselves. Puberty's going to change a lot. Let's see what happens during puberty. Talk to them about their gender identity and let them lead the way. I don't get what's so difficult about that, honestly. Though to be fair, I do not, to my knowledge, have an intersex child, so I haven't been pushed into making any certain decision or forced to make any kind of decision like that. I know it's not the same thing. I know circumcision is another kind of debated topic. Both my kids were assigned male at birth, and I was like, I'm going to let them wait until they're old enough to make that decision for themselves. I'm not performing anything on their genitals. Like, leave their genitals alone until they're old enough. Much Mewing says, I remember hearing this at some point in my life, also referring to bottom surgery. Oh, you mean that quote, like, it's easier to dig a hole than to build a pole? Like, I think that's so awful. What's the word I'm looking for? It's so crude. Yeah, the whole pole thing. It's crude, in my opinion, to put something as important as a person's genitalia to something as simple as, like, a hole or a pole. Anyways. So, do people have any questions about what being intersex means? Other than the fact that it's more common than you think. It could mean a variety of things. It could just be something like chromosomes. It could be something that has to do with genitalia on the external, could be internal. A lot of people aren't aware of it. And it's just one of those things that proves that gender is, obviously, you don't want to erase the male and female boxes. I mean, some do, but like, it's more complicated than that. There are other options. I think I talked about this last week in terms of passports. In Canada, you can choose other, but then when you book a flight with any airline, you have to choose male or female, which is really frustrating. So it's just one of those things where not enough people are aware of it, which is kind of odd because, again, 1.7% of the population, which is as common as someone being born with naturally red hair, that's quite common. I mean, how many people know redheads? So chances are you know somebody that is intersex, whether or not they're aware of it or not. And how is this not talked about? How is this not considered to be... Oh, you can hear the kids. Sorry. They're having a hard time going to bed. So, yeah, it does, when you kind of think about it this context, it makes you realize that almost how absurd it is that when a baby comes out, you just take a peek at its external genitalia and the way it's shaped and then announce what sex or gender it is. I think that is kind of like, but sex is so much more complicated than that. It's not just the shape of our genitalia. Everyone's different. Nimpup says, this is really interesting. I had no idea. How do you know if you are? It's a good question. How do you know if you are? Unless there is some more on a glance obvious variation in your external genitalia. The only way you can really know is if you've had some kind of ultrasound on your internal sex characteristics, like your ovaries, your vagina. And again, you'd have to get tested, like your hormone levels tested and your chromosome levels tested. If you think you might be intersex, I'm sure, I mean, it also depends on your geographical location. I don't know what it's like in the States. You probably have to pay for it because it's... In Canada, if you came to your doctor and said, I think I might be intersex and I would love to get tested to check my chromosomes, to check my hormone levels, and if you have or have not had an ultrasound on your abdomen, that's what you would want. And that would give you more of an idea. And that could be really helpful for a lot of people that might not be sure if they're experiencing some questions, or especially through puberty. That's often where the people that become knowledgeable really figure it out. Like, they may be born with a vagina, they're assigned female at birth, and then puberty happens and they start growing like a lot of facial hair. That might be a time to go to the doctor and be like, hey, I just want to check my hormone levels. And then they'll come up and be like, actually, it looks like your hormone levels are showing male, basically. So I don't know how the process would go during, like, being in the United States, if that's where you're located. But I would say just ask your doctor if you're interested in finding out more, because I'm sure that that's something that they can accommodate. I know in Canada, that would be fairly easy. So join us in Canada. Chotub says intersex or interracial are same. No. Intersex means you are born with some kind of variation of your sex characteristics, meaning either your external genitalia, your internal genitalia sex characteristics. Maybe you are born with a penis, but you have a uterus. Your chromosomes might point to male or female, while your hormone levels show something else. It just means you're not necessarily biologically female or male. You're somewhere in the middle because it is a spectrum. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have other questions. Other than that, I'm actually going to call it a night. So thank you for joining me for our Hump Day Q&A. If you have any other questions or comments, you can either comment on the video or you can message me privately. That's totally fine. If you have any topics or questions you want me to cover during Hump Day Q&A, please let me know. Other than that, I should probably go. It's my bedtime, even though it's really early. I'm a mom. All of my social medias, you can get a hold of me at Sex with Robin. If you're interested in finding more about sex coaching, my coaching website is robinsnestcoaching.com. In terms of my sex educator, presenter, or if you're looking for merch, that's alternativesexuality.ca, because I have 2 websites for some reason. I love you all. Happy hump day. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Let me know what you want to hear about next week. And take care of each other. Bye.